Hey guys, welcome back to LAB. Very pleased to be back in my chair after a few weeks away from you guys. If you've missed out on what I've been doing, those of you who follow me on Instagram will know that I've been super busy on there doing the live lounges every single week and posting a load of content on there. So those of you who are not following me on Instagram, you are missing out on like 90% of the legal content I'm creating right now. So please follow me on there. Obviously, I'm going to continue to do YouTube videos. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. But there's a lot of added extra bits on there as well as all my other social media channels. So please do give me a follow. It's been a few weeks since we last spoke, and I know that I haven't spoken to you guys since everything happened in the USA surrounding the horrific death of George Floyd, and I don't want to not discuss this issue with you because it's too important. The last few weeks have been a real eye-opener for me because coming from a position of extreme privilege, as I now know, I've never been subject to any racism and neither have any of my friends or family. So this was an issue that I genuinely thought was in the past or limited to really extreme groups of people or generations. I really didn't know that this was still such an issue in the modern day and age. So I've spent the last 2 weeks really trying to get to grips with Black history, with racism, and try and work out how I can best help this situation to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. I definitely don't have all of the answers, and I'm not going to do a video on these issues because I certainly don't feel educated enough to educate you on these issues. But I do think now that this issue has been brought to all of our attention, we've all got a duty to learn about it and do our bit to make sure the situation improves. So I've posted a few links on my Instagram over the last few weeks about ways that you can help to donate and sign petitions. And I also put a link on my LinkedIn today, which is a Guardian article, which is 20 positive ways that you can create a lasting change in relation to racism. So if, like me, you've kind of been struggling to work out how on earth you can personally make a difference to this, that's a really good article to start with, and I'll link it in the description. Okay, into today's video, which is all about the SQE, my favourite subject. If you don't know what the SQE is, you've not been following me for very long, and I'm not going to go into all the details today because I've already filmed this video once and it was 50 minutes long, 50. Totally unacceptable. You would all have gone to competitors if this was a real life lawyer-client scenario. So we are going in today with a pure Q&A. Here's the link to the SQE playlist. If you're new to this, please watch all the videos in that playlist. Primarily the interview I did with Crispin Passmore, who created the SQE, and also my most recent video called The T on the SQE, which is all the most up-to-date info. This Q&A came about as a result of the changes which were announced by the SRA this week surrounding the exam design of the SQE2 examination. I then had a follow-up conversation directly with the SRA on Thursday where we had nearly an hour and a half's worth of debrief, so I've definitely got the most up-to-date and accurate information for you today. I put this post out on Instagram to say ask your questions, and I've pretty much got answers to them all, I think. So we're going to go through them all in quick succession and hope that this video is shorter than the last time I filmed it. Question 1, when will the SQE be enforced and will we have the option to do the LPC instead? Good question. September 2021 has always been the proposed implementation date, and the SRA maintain that that is still the implementation date. As a result of the new changes which have been announced this week, they still need to be approved by the LSB, the Legal Services Board, which is the overarching regulator for the SRA. So once those changes have been approved, which is expected to be over the next 2 or 3 months, it should be announced that the implementation date will be going ahead in 2021. It's not expected that the LSB won't approve those changes. Some of you may have seen this week that the Junior Lawyers Division wrote to the SRA and called for them to delay the start date because of some queries they had about the pilot results and the exam design. I support those queries that were within that letter, and I hope that they're taken into account. But personally, I don't think that will result in a delayed start date. I still think it will go ahead in 2021 because of the reasons that I previously outlined in other videos surrounding the apprenticeship route and things like that. So go with September 2021. Will you still be able to do the LPC? Good question, because this is a bit of a grey area. The SRA have said that there will be an 11-year crossover period until 2032 where you can continue under the old route, i.e. the current route, the LPC route. The criteria is if you have already started your training journey by September 2021, then you will be able to continue under the existing route. And by training journey, that means as long as you have started a law degree, GDL, LPC, by 2021, you will be allowed to continue down the LPC route. However, what the SRA don't have control over is how long educational providers will actually stay offering the LPC, because that's effectively a dead course as soon as the SQE comes into force. So universities will be phasing that out in the first few years, probably, of the SQE coming in. Next question. Can I do 3 months of work experience prior to September 2021 and count this towards my SQE qualifying work experience? Yes, you can. You can actually do all of your 2 years of qualifying work experience before September 2021. So in theory, if you feel ready, you could take the SQE1 in September 2021. However, I wouldn't recommend doing SQE1 without some kind of prep course, because although it's designed to test your legal knowledge, and you may have that legal knowledge, there's also an element of preparing for the exam itself, which is a skill in itself. So I wouldn't recommend doing it without any kind of prep course, and we're going to come on to prep courses in a second. Next question, where does it leave paralegals who are looking to apply for TCs in 2021? So this is a bit more of a grey area, because under the new system, you don't have to secure a training contract in order to qualify. However, a lot of law firms are continuing to recruit in much the same way as they are now. So training contracts will still be being offered even under the new system. So if you were planning to apply for a training contract in 2021, the chances are you will still be following that route, but this really comes down to where you want to work. You will have to keep an eye on the firms you want to apply for, or the legal businesses that you want to apply for jobs within or qualify within, to see what their recruitment strategy looks like. So it makes sense to really focus on trying to work out where you want to qualify and where you want to do your qualifying work experience, and then look to those businesses to see how they're recruiting and when you need to start applying. Next, will there be options for prep classes before exams? Yes, there absolutely will be options for prep courses, and there will be different types of prep course depending on your experience level and your level of legal education. So if you're a non-law student, there will be a more intensive prep course for SQE1, which looks a bit like a GDL, but less intensive. And similarly, there will also be a prep course for SQE2. However, if you've got prior legal knowledge, you may only have to do a top-up course for the SQE1. So if you've done a law degree or a GDL, I still think you will need to do a prep course to prep you for the exam itself, but it will be a much shorter form of course than if you had not done a law degree. There hasn't been much announced about these prep courses at the moment, unfortunately, and that is the situation. There just isn't that much known about them, and as more and more information becomes available, I will pass it on to you. I suspect there will be a massive acceleration in the pace of change once the LSB actually approve these changes and it's 100% set in stone that it's going ahead in 2021. I think then everyone will get their act together in terms of firms, businesses, legal recruiters, educational establishments, and they will start kind of going into speed mode to get it all sorted. So I think there will be a lot more information available about these prep courses soon. Next, international students. I hear you. How does it work for internationals who may not be UK educated? So basically the criteria under the new system is that you have to have the equivalent of an undergraduate degree in any subject. It doesn't have to be law. So provided that your qualification translates to an undergraduate degree, then you will proceed the same way as everybody else who has a non-law undergraduate degree. In order to know whether your degree specifically qualifies as an undergraduate degree in the UK, you'll have to ask your educational provider, or you will have to ask the place where you want to study your SQE prep course, for example, whether that qualifies, because I don't know what all the different qualifications are around the world. But provided it equates, then you can proceed in exactly the same way as everybody else. Next question. If you're not doing a law degree, you currently apply for training contracts in your third year. Will this change? Again, this is a bit more of a difficult question to answer under the new system, because there are so many different ways you can do it. You can do a prep course, or you can not do a prep course. You can do your qualifying work experience before you do your exams or after you do your exams. So it's not a set system now that if you're a non-law graduate, you have to do a year of GDL and then a year of LPC and then you start your training contract. That was the old system, but now it's completely up to you how you want to qualify and how long it's going to take. But by way of example, if you are a non-law graduate who graduates in July 2021, for example, in theory, you could do your SQE1 in September 2021, your SQE2 in spring 2022, and be eligible to start either a training contract or your 2 years qualifying work experience in September 2022. In theory, that's possible, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend doing some kind of prep course, but the level of prep course is entirely up to you, and that governs how long that process will take. It will also depend whether you want to start racking up some of your qualifying work experience at the same time and do your SQE studying part-time. There is no kind of one answer as to when you need to apply. It depends on the journey that you want to take, and it also depends on the type of legal business that you want to work in, because they will all have different types of recruitment pattern going forward because of this new system. So what I would do is decide on the type of business that you want to work in and look at how they're going to recruit, and then you can tailor your journey around that. Next question, will firms prefer applicants who have completed the SQE over the LPC? So that's a question that a lot of you have asked me, especially those who are in the bracket where they could choose either route. Which route should you choose? Which route is going to land you a training contract or an NQ role in your dream firm? My honest answer to that is I don't think there will be a preference. I think legal businesses are fully aware that this new route is coming in and that there is a long overlap period, and there will be a large cohort of you who have already gone down the LPC route and will therefore be looking to qualify that way, as well as a whole new cohort coming in who will want to go down the SQE route. So I don't think firms or businesses will be that prejudiced against either route. However, a lot of law firms, as I mentioned, are pretty much looking to recruit in exactly the same way that they are now. So a lot of law firms will be looking to recruit you whilst you're on your law degree or non-law degree, and then they will dictate the route for you to take, which will probably be the SQE after 2021. So again, you really need to work out where you want to work or where you want to qualify, and then look at how those businesses are recruiting, and that will help you decide which route to go down. If I could throw in a little bit of advice on this, if you are in a bracket where you could choose either route, I don't know why you would choose the LPC route, and this is why. One of the major reasons why the SQE was introduced was to increase accessibility, because the LPC and the training contract route was A, incredibly expensive, and B, crazy bottlenecked because of the need to go via a law firm that was regulated to offer training contracts. There are some other exceptions when non-law firms are offering training contracts, but basically that's how the bottleneck arose. The SQE is going to be significantly cheaper and allows you to qualify outside of a law firm. So you save money and you've got a better chance of qualifying because you don't have to go via a law firm. It makes no sense to me to spend 11 to 13 grand on an LPC, which is a massive risk because you don't know if you're going to get a training contract or not, when you've got the option to spend a lot less money and you will almost certainly qualify, because all you have to then do is pass your exams and get your 2 years of qualifying work experience. So honestly, I don't know why you would choose the LPC route over the SQE route if you've got the option to do either. Here's a little pros and cons list just to make you aware of what the pros and cons are if you're going through the process. Some other people will disagree with me and say that the LPC is a much better course and you'll get much better training. You've got the option to do electives and things like that. From a personal point of view, I don't actually agree. I actually think that your training is the most important part of your legal journey. I think the academic stuff is much less important than the quality of your training and what you learn during your training contract or your qualifying work experience. If I was you, I would focus a lot more on trying to train or do your qualifying work experience in the best place that you possibly can, rather than placing too much emphasis on what route you take. But that is my own personal opinion on it, and you will get people who say differently. Next question, could making it a bit easier to become a solicitor lead to an overly saturated job market? Absolutely yes. I think there is a very strong chance that because we are making the profession more accessible, we're making the route of qualification slightly easier, that there is going to be a huge amount of people at NQ level looking for NQ roles. And that's why I've said that it's really important to try and train in the best place that you can. Ideally, you would want to train or do your qualifying work experience somewhere where you're likely to be offered an NQ position, because then you don't have to worry about that. But in the absence of that, you want to train in the best place that you possibly can, because if you are thrown into that NQ job market, which is incredibly competitive, you want to be a strong competitor. So yes, in theory, you could do your qualifying work experience in some base rate establishment, because the criteria for qualifying work experience are pretty broad and you can therefore do it almost anywhere. But I wouldn't recommend doing that, because if you are thrown into that job market, then you're going to need the best quality training in order to make sure that you're a strong competitor for those roles. So again, I would place a lot of your focus on where you are doing your qualifying work experience and try and do that in the absolute best place you possibly can. Cost, how much is the SQE course going to be? So the exams on their own, no prep courses, just taking the exams, will cost you between £3,000 and £4,500. Prep courses, again, there still isn't a huge amount announced about this. Barbary, who is one of the educational providers who will be offering prep courses, have said they're trying to keep the entire cost of qualification under £10,000. So that would include prep courses for both SQE1 and SQE2, as well as the exams. That isn't set in stone, that's what they're trying to do, and we'll know more about the full cost when more details come out. How many times can you take the SQE? You can take it a maximum of 3 times and then you're out, you're done. I would try and pass it the first time if you can though, because you will have to pay full price each time that you take it, and they're not cheap if you have to repeat them. Next question, will there be a limited amount of places or sittings of the SQE? In respect of SQE1, it's an online examination, it's an online multiple choice examinations, and you will have to take it in a set centre called a Pearson Centre. But because it's online, there aren't really limited amounts, and it's unlikely that you will find yourself in a position where you want to do it, but you're not able to do it because it's full. And the same with SQE2. Again, that's not an online exam, and you will have to go to a specific centre to take it, but there are lots of those centres, and I don't think you're going to be in a position, again, where you want to take it and can't because it's full. There will be 2 sittings of each exam per year, so if you did unfortunately fail the first time, you wouldn't have to wait an entire year to take it the second time. Next question, will the GDL cease to exist? No, it won't. Firstly, because barristers still need to take it. The barrister route hasn't changed at the moment. So if you're a barrister who's done a non-law degree, you will still need to do the GDL in order to convert and become a barrister. Even aside from that, the GDL route will still be relevant to some solicitors because, confusingly, several law firms have indicated that they will still require their non-law graduates who they recruit in advance to take the GDL as well as SQE1, even though the SRA doesn't technically require it for you to qualify. Some law firms are saying that they still want to put their trainees through that. So the GDL will still continue to exist, and it is still a really relevant course. I did the GDL, I thought it was brilliant, and it is likely to give you a much greater depth of understanding and legal knowledge than an SQE prep course. But the issue is cost again. The GDL is going to set you back somewhere between £7,000 and £10,000, and you don't need to do it. You can do a prep course instead, which would be much cheaper. So it's really a case of, if you can afford it and you want to do it, great. It will certainly help you to pass SQE1, but you don't absolutely need it. And also, if you do the GDL, that isn't a guarantee straight into SQE1. You will still likely need to do a mini top-up prep. You will still likely need to do a mini top-up prep course to actually prep you for the exam itself. If you're thinking about doing the GDL, I would strongly recommend looking into the PGDL course, which is offered by BPP, which is a combined GDL and prep course, so that you won't need to do a top-up course before SQE1. Undoubtedly, other providers will also be offering something similar, but if you did want to go down that route, it makes sense to do a combined prep course and have to pay for another course at the end of your GDL. This leads me on to another question. Will law graduates who have a qualifying law degree need to take the SQE as well? Yes, you will. Even if you're a law graduate or you've done the GDL, you will still need to take SQE1. There are no exemptions from that for law degree holders. Interestingly though, I did find out a little nugget of information from the SRA this week, which isn't well publicised, which is, if you have done the LPC and you are unable to get a training contract, you will only need to take SQE2 in order to qualify, as long as you've got your 2 years qualifying work experience. So although there are in theory no exemptions, if you've done your LPC, you will not have to do SQE1 if you want to qualify. So this is kind of a hybrid route, if you like. So you could do the LPC plus SQE2. So if you're in a position where you have done your LPC and you've been a paralegal for several years and you're unable to get a training contract, in theory, you don't have to do SQE1. You can go straight into SQE2 with a prep course if you like, and then you will be qualified. So this is a great little nugget of information if you've already completed your LPC. However, if you're sitting there thinking, oh, okay, so I could just do my LPC and then if I don't get a training contract, I'll just do SQE2 and qualify. Again, my advice to you would be, why would you want to do that? Because your LPC is going to set you back £11,000 to £13,000. Only for you to go on and do the SQE2 anyway. You might as well do SQE1 instead of the LPC and save yourself a whole hell of a lot of money. So just bear that in mind when you're thinking about options. That was all the questions that were asked in the Q&A. Thanks so much for sending them in. There are a couple of other questions that I've been asked regularly that I do just want to answer. The first one is, I was planning to apply for training contracts this year, but shall I stop and wait for the SQE? No, 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 absolutely not. Because by far the best case scenario is that you secure a training contract now and then you don't have to worry about any of this, because the firm where you've secured a training contract will dictate the route that you take. And more importantly, they will pay for the route that you take. So there is absolutely no reason not to apply for training contracts right now, because the SQE still carries risks. You might not pass the exam, you might not be able to get qualifying work experience, you might not be able to get an NQ position. So by far best case scenario is that you get a training contract now. So do not hold off on applying to wait for the SQE. Everyone clear at the back? Are we clear? Yeah, everyone's clear. Do not apply. Next question I get asked, is there any point in doing a law degree now that you don't need to in order to qualify? Yes, there is. There's a lot of point in doing a law degree. A, because a law degree is a really, really useful degree. So you can end up going into loads and loads of other careers with a law degree. It gives you a really good standing if you later decide that perhaps you don't want to do law. Secondly, it's really going to help you pass your SQE, bearing in mind that you're still going to need to do SQE1. There is no exemption. So you will need to study law at some point. The system is saying you don't need a law degree, but it's not saying you don't need to know any law. So at some point you are going to have to learn the law. You're not getting out of that. So you can do that in the form of a GDL or in the form of a prep course for the SQE1, but also you can do that in the form of a law degree. It's still valid and it's still useful. But if you're at the point where you are deciding what university course to choose, then if you really plan to go on and become a solicitor, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't choose a university law course which is offering you a combined undergraduate degree and also preparation for the SQE, which some universities will be doing, but not all. So my advice to you would be to study at one of those universities so you don't then have to take another prep course after university. You're already going to be paying something like £9,000 to study your undergraduate degree. You might as well get your SQE prep course tied in with that as well, rather than having to pay extra once you finish. Another thing you might want to think about if you are about to embark on a degree is doing the apprenticeship route. I'm a huge fan of the apprenticeship route. I have an apprentice at work at the moment and she is absolutely amazing. And as I've said before, I put much more weight on the experience side than the academic side. And actually, I think there is no better way to get on the road to where you want to be in your career than to start earning and learning as soon as possible. If you take the apprenticeship route, your costs of qualification are zero because you don't have to pay for university, and the business where you're doing your apprenticeship will pay for your exams. So you save a massive amount of cost there, and you also start earning right now rather than having to wait 3 or 4 years before you can start earning. So for me, there is no reason not to look at the apprenticeship route. I think it's great. There are also graduate apprenticeships available as well, which isn't well publicised, but there are options if you already have a degree, although there are less of those in the traditional apprenticeship route. I think the final point that I really want to hammer before I leave you alone, because this is already really long, is that the other great thing about the SQE is that you don't have to train in a law firm anymore. I hear a lot of you talking about what firm's going to prefer, when should I start applying for training contracts. All of this is relevant, but also please look outside the possibility of training in a law firm. There's a huge amount of focus on law firms because historically that was the only option. You had to train in a law firm, more or less. But now there are way more options, and this is where it's going to make the profession more accessible. The SQE is designed to make the profession more accessible. It's not designed to make law firms more accessible. So if you want to train in a law firm, you're still going to find a very similar bottleneck, I think, to what you're experiencing now, because of the popularity of law firms and because of the way some law firms have indicated how they're going to recruit going forward. So the SQE, I think, really comes into its own because it allows you to qualify outside of a law firm. So really do your research in the other types of businesses that are available where you can do your qualifying work experience and ultimately qualify. I'm talking about in-house, I'm talking about alternative legal service providers, I'm talking about public sector bodies. There are loads of alternatives to working in a law firm, and that's where you're going to find it more accessible, is when you go down those routes. So definitely, if you're planning your career, make sure you are looking at all of your options rather than just looking at private practice. Okay, I'm done. Oh my Lord, I need a giant glass of water after that. I'm so sorry that was so long, and I'm sure there's loads of other questions that you might have that I haven't answered, so drop them in the comments box below and I will try and answer them. I do have ongoing comms with the SRA, so I will hopefully be giving you the most accurate and up-to-date information as and when it comes out. I'm also doing loads of interviews via the live lounge, which is my Instagram live sessions on Mondays. We've talked loads about the SQE. The last one I did was with Paul Gascoigne from Shearman and Sterling, who was super helpful about giving his thoughts about the SQE, and there's going to be more coming up. So make sure you're tuning into those as well as my YouTube videos. Okay guys, enjoy the rest of your week and I will catch up with you again next week. Bye guys.